The video game reality. A tale of adventure and friendship. Chapter 1. The Fateful Night. It was a crisp autumn evening on the campus of Evergreen University. The air was filled with the excitement of a new semester, and the promise of adventure hung thick in the atmosphere. In the cozy confines of Dorm Block C, Room 305, four friends huddled around a glowing computer screen, their faces illuminated by the soft blue light. Jake, the self-proclaimed gaming expert of the group, sat at the keyboard, his fingers dancing across the keys with practiced ease. Beside him, Mia leaned forward, her dark curls falling over her shoulders as she watched intently. On the bottom bunk, Alex sprawled out, his lanky frame taking up most of the small bed, while Zoe perched cross-legged on the desk chair, her bright green eyes never leaving the screen. "Guys, you won't believe what I found," Jake said, his voice tinged with excitement. "It's a new game that just dropped today. It's supposed to be the most immersive gaming experience ever created." "What's it called?" Alex asked, sitting up and running a hand through his messy blonde hair. Jake clicked on the game's icon, and a title screen appeared. Realms Uncharted, The Ultimate Adventure. "Sounds pretty generic," Zoe commented, raising an eyebrow. "Trust me, it's anything but," Jake replied, his eyes gleaming. "The reviews are insane. People are saying it's like nothing they've ever experienced before." Mia leaned in closer, reading the game's description. "It says here that it uses some kind of new technology to create a fully immersive environment. Players can feel, smell, and even taste the game world." "That's impossible," Alex scoffed. "How would that even work?" Jake shrugged. "Who knows? But I'm dying to try it out. Come on, guys, let's give it a shot. It's multiplayer, so we can all join in." There was a moment of hesitation before Zoe spoke up. "I don't know, Jake. Sounds a bit too good to be true. And we have that big exam coming up next week." "Oh, live a little, Zoe," Mia exclaimed, playfully nudging her friend. "We've been studying nonstop for days. We deserve a break." After a few more minutes of cajoling, all four friends agreed to play. Jake began the download, and they watched as the progress bar slowly filled. "It's asking for our names," Jake said as a new screen appeared. They each entered their information, and suddenly, the room was filled with a soft, pulsing light emanating from the computer. Guys?" Alex said, his voice wavering. "Is this normal?" Before anyone could respond, the light intensified, enveloping them in a blinding white glow. They felt a strange pulling sensation, as if their very essence was being drawn into the computer screen. And then, everything went black. Chapter 2. Welcome to Realms Uncharted. When Jake opened his eyes, he found himself floating in a vast, empty space. Panic gripped him as he tried to move, only to realize that his body felt different, lighter, almost weightless. As his vision adjusted, he saw his friends nearby, all looking as confused and disoriented as he felt. What happened?" Mia's voice echoed strangely in the void. Before anyone could answer, a booming voice filled the space around them. "Welcome, players, to Realms Uncharted, the ultimate adventure. You have been chosen to participate in the most immersive gaming experience ever created. Your mission is simple: survive, thrive, and find your way home." "This can't be real," Zoe whispered, her eyes wide with fear. "I assure you, it is very real," the voice continued. "You are now part of the game world. Everything you experience here will feel as real as your own world. But fear not, for you are in no physical danger. Your bodies remain safe in your world, while your consciousness has been transferred into the game." Alex let out a nervous laugh. "This is insane. We need to get out of here." "The only way out is through," the voice replied. "Complete the challenges, overcome the obstacles, and you will find your way back to your world. Fail, and you may be trapped here forever." With those ominous words, the void around them began to shift and change. Colors swirled and merged, forming shapes and landscapes. The friends found themselves being pulled apart, each drawn to a different part of the forming world. "Stay together," Jake yelled, reaching out for his friends. But it was too late. In a matter of seconds, they were separated, each falling into a different realm of the game world. Jake landed with a splash in a vast underwater kingdom. Mia found herself on a sun-baked desert island. Alex materialized in a dense, misty jungle, and Zoe appeared in a glittering crystal cavern deep beneath the earth. As they each took in their surroundings, one thought echoed in their minds. How were they going to find each other and get back home? Chapter 3: Jake's Underwater Odyssey. Jake's lungs burned as he instinctively held his breath, surrounded by the crystal-clear waters of an alien ocean. Panic set in as he realized he was sinking deeper into the abyss. Just as he thought his lungs would burst, a strange sensation washed over him. He could breathe. Taking a tentative breath, Jake found that the water flowed easily in and out of his lungs, providing him with oxygen. It was an odd feeling, but one he was immensely grateful for. As his eyes adjusted to the underwater environment, Jake gasped in awe. The world around him was a riot of colors and life. Schools of iridescent fish darted past, their scales shimmering in the filtered sunlight. Coral formations of impossible shapes and hues stretched as far as the eye could see, creating a labyrinthine underwater city. "This is incredible," Jake murmured to himself, his voice sounding strange in the water. A small, glowing orb suddenly appeared before him, pulsing with a soft blue light. As Jake reached out to touch it, it expanded, revealing a holographic message. "Welcome to Aquarius, the sunken kingdom. Your first challenge awaits. Seek the Pearl of Poseidon in the abyssal trench. Beware the guardians of the deep." The orb disappeared as quickly as it had appeared, leaving Jake alone with his thoughts. He knew he had to find a way to reunite with his friends, but it seemed the only way forward was to play along with the game's challenges. Taking a deep breath, which still felt bizarre underwater, Jake began to swim, marveling at how easily he moved through the water. It was as if he had been born to this aquatic world. As he swam deeper into the underwater realm, Jake encountered all manner of strange and wondrous creatures. Bioluminescent jellyfish pulsed with hypnotic rhythms, while giant clams snapped shut at his approach. He even spotted what looked like the ruins of an ancient civilization, its crumbling structures now home to a myriad of marine life. After what felt like hours of exploration, Jake finally caught sight of a deep, dark crevice in the ocean floor. This had to be the abyssal trench mentioned in the message. As he approached the edge, a chill ran down his spine. The darkness seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy, and he could swear he heard faint whispers emanating from its depths. "Well, here goes nothing," Jake muttered, steeling himself for whatever lay ahead. As he began his descent into the trench, the water around him grew colder and darker. The vibrant colors of the reef gave way to muted blues and grays. The only light came from occasional patches of bioluminescent algae clinging to the rocky walls. Suddenly, a massive shape loomed out of the darkness. Jake froze as he found himself face to face with an enormous anglerfish, its razor-sharp teeth gleaming in the dim light of its bioluminescent lure. "I guess you must be one of the guardians," Jake said, trying to keep the fear out of his voice. The anglerfish lunged forward, its massive jaws snapping shut mere inches from Jake's face. He darted to the side, narrowly avoiding its attack. As he swam, Jake's mind raced. How was he supposed to get past this monster? Then he remembered this was a game. There had to be a solution, a way to outsmart or outmaneuver the creature. Jake scanned his surroundings, looking for anything that might help. That's when he noticed a pattern in the anglerfish's attacks. It always struck immediately after its lure flashed. If he could time it right, Jake took a deep breath and swam directly towards the anglerfish. As its lure began to glow, he prepared himself. The moment the light flashed, Jake dove downwards, using the creature's own momentum against it. The anglerfish sailed over him, crashing into the trench wall. Not wasting a second, Jake swam deeper into the trench, his heart pounding. He could hear the anglerfish recovering behind him, but he didn't dare look back. As he descended further, the water pressure increased, and the darkness became almost absolute. Jake was about to turn back when he saw it, a faint, pearlescent glow emanating from a small cavern. Swimming towards the light, Jake entered the cavern and found himself in a small, bubble-like chamber. In the center, floating in a beam of ethereal light, was a perfect, luminous pearl the size of his fist. "The Pearl of Poseidon," Jake breathed, reaching out to grasp it. The moment his fingers touched the pearl, a surge of energy coursed through him. The cavern began to shake, and Jake knew he had to get out fast. Clutching the pearl tightly, he swam back into the trench and upwards with all his might. The anglerfish was waiting for him, but something had changed. It cowered away from the light of the pearl, allowing Jake to pass unharmed. As he emerged from the trench, pearl in hand, Jake felt a sense of accomplishment wash over him. He had completed his first challenge. But more importantly, he now had a clue, a way to potentially find his friends and escape this digital world. With renewed determination, Jake set off to explore more of the underwater kingdom, the Pearl of Poseidon lighting his way through the depths. Chapter 4: Mia's Island Survival. The scorching sun beat down mercilessly on Mia as she stood on the pristine white sand of a seemingly deserted island. The contrast between the cool, air-conditioned dorm room she had been in just moments ago and this tropical paradise was jarring. "Hello," she called out, her voice carrying across the empty beach. "Jake? Zoe? Alex? Anyone?" Only the gentle lapping of waves against the shore answered her. Mia took a deep breath, trying to calm her racing heart. She was alone, stranded on an island in a video game world. The reality of her situation began to sink in, and for a moment, panic threatened to overwhelm her. But Mia had always prided herself on her ability to stay level-headed in tough situations. She closed her eyes, took another deep breath, and began to assess her surroundings. The beach stretched for miles in either direction, curving gently to form a crescent shape. Behind her, a dense jungle loomed, its lush greenery a stark contrast to the white sand and blue ocean. In the distance, she could see a mountain peak rising above the treeline. As she pondered her next move, a familiar glowing orb appeared before her. It expanded, revealing a message. "Welcome to Isla Perdida. Your challenge: survive and thrive. Find the ancient ruins hidden within the island's heart. Uncover the secret of the Fountain of Youth. But beware, the island's guardians are always watching." The orb disappeared, leaving Mia with more questions than answers. She knew she needed to find shelter and fresh water, but the lure of the ancient ruins and the mysterious Fountain of Youth intrigued her. "First things first," Mia muttered to herself. "Water, food, and shelter." She set off along the beach, keeping an eye out for anything useful. As she walked, she couldn't help but marvel at the detail of this virtual world. She could feel the heat of the sun on her skin, the sand between her toes, even the salty breeze in her hair. It was uncanny how real everything felt. After about an hour of walking, Mia stumbled upon a small freshwater stream flowing from the jungle to the ocean. She cupped her hands and drank deeply, relishing the cool, clean taste of the water. With her most pressing need taken care of, Mia turned her attention to food and shelter. She gathered some large palm leaves and began weaving them together, creating a makeshift shelter near the stream. It wasn't pretty, but it would provide some protection from the elements. As for food, Mia spotted some coconut palms nearby. Using a sharp rock, she managed to crack open a coconut after several attempts. The sweet coconut water and flesh would keep her going for now, but she knew she'd need to find more substantial food soon. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow across the island, Mia sat in her shelter, pondering her next move. The jungle seemed like the logical place to search for the ruins, but the thought of venturing into its depths alone was daunting. Just as she was about to call it a night, Mia heard a rustling in the nearby bushes. She froze, her heart pounding. Was this one of the island's guardians the message had warned about? Slowly, a small, furry head poked out of the foliage. It was a monkey, its large eyes regarding Mia with curiosity. After a moment of hesitation, the monkey emerged fully, revealing that it was carrying something in its hands, a piece of fruit Mia didn't recognize. The monkey approached cautiously, stopping a few feet away from Mia. It placed the fruit on the ground and then retreated a short distance, watching her expectantly. Mia picked up the fruit, examining it closely. It was roughly the size of an apple, with a vibrant purple skin. She sniffed it cautiously. It had a sweet, enticing aroma. "Are you trying to help me?" Mia asked the monkey, feeling a bit foolish for talking to an animal in a video game. To her surprise, the monkey nodded, as if it understood her perfectly. It made a gesture that seemed to say, "Go on, eat it." Deciding to trust her small companion, Mia took a bite of the fruit. Flavor exploded in her mouth. It was the most delicious thing she had ever tasted. As she ate, she felt her strength returning, her mind becoming clearer. The monkey watched her finish the fruit, then made a series of gestures, pointing towards the jungle and then back at Mia. "You want me to follow you?" Mia asked, rising to her feet. The monkey nodded again and began to move towards the jungle. Mia hesitated for a moment, then grabbed a makeshift spear she had fashioned from a fallen branch and followed her new guide into the dense foliage. As they ventured deeper into the jungle, Mia marveled at the diversity of plant and animal life around her. Colorful birds flitted between the trees, their calls echoing through the canopy. Flowers of impossible shapes and hues bloomed everywhere she looked. The monkey led her along barely visible paths, sometimes stopping to offer her more of the strange, revitalizing fruit. As they traveled, Mia began to notice odd markings on some of the trees, symbols that looked vaguely familiar, though she couldn't quite place them. After what felt like hours of trekking through the jungle, they emerged into a small clearing. In the center stood an ancient stone structure, half hidden by vines and moss. The monkey stopped at the edge of the clearing, refusing to go any further. Mia approached the structure cautiously. It was a pyramid, but unlike any she had seen before. The stones were covered in the same strange symbols she had noticed on the trees. As she got closer, she realized why they looked familiar. They resembled the characters used in old video games. "This must be the ruins," Mia said to herself, running her hand along the cool stone surface. As her fingers traced one of the symbols, it began to glow with a soft blue light. Suddenly, the entire structure lit up, symbols flashing in complex patterns. The ground began to rumble, and Mia stumbled backwards as a section of the pyramid slid open, revealing a dark passageway. Mia looked back at her monkey guide, but the small creature was nowhere to be seen. She was on her own now. Taking a deep breath, Mia stepped into the passageway, the stone door sliding shut behind her. As her eyes adjusted to the darkness, she saw that Chapter 5, Alex's Jungle Odyssey. Alex found himself in the heart of a dense, misty jungle. The air was thick with humidity, and the sounds of exotic birds and insects filled his ears. Towering trees stretched as far as the eye could see, their canopies blocking out most of the sunlight and casting the forest floor in a perpetual twilight. "Hello," Alex called out, his voice muffled by the dense foliage. "Jake? Mia? Zoe? Can anyone hear me?" Only the chattering of distant monkeys answered him. Alex ran a hand through his hair, trying to calm his nerves. He had never been much of an outdoorsman, preferring the comfort of his computer to the unpredictability of nature. Now he was alone in a virtual jungle that felt all too real. As he stood there, unsure of what to do next, a familiar glowing orb appeared before him. It expanded, revealing a message. "Welcome to the Whispering Jungle. Your challenge: navigate the living maze and find the heart of the forest. Beware the shapeshifters and trust your instincts. The jungle sees all." The orb disappeared, leaving Alex with a sense of dread. Shapeshifters? A living maze? This was way out of his comfort zone. "Okay, Alex," he muttered to himself. "You can do this. It's just a game, right? A very realistic, potentially dangerous game." He took a tentative step forward, wincing as his foot sank into the soft, damp earth. The jungle seemed to close in around him, the mist thickening with each step. Alex couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. As he pushed deeper into the jungle, Alex began to notice strange things. The trees seemed to move when he wasn't looking directly at them. Vines would suddenly appear in his path, forcing him to change direction. It was as if the jungle itself was alive, constantly shifting and changing. The living maze, Alex realized. The whole jungle is the maze. He tried to keep track of his path, but it was useless. Every time he thought he had found a way forward, the jungle would shift, leaving him disoriented and lost. After what felt like hours of wandering, Alex stumbled into a small clearing. In the center stood an ancient stone pedestal, covered in moss and vines. Atop the pedestal was a weathered compass. Alex approached cautiously, remembering the warning about shapeshifters. But his curiosity got the better of him, and he picked up the compass. To his surprise, instead of pointing north, the needle spun wildly before settling on a direction that seemed to lead deeper into the jungle. "Well, it's better than wandering aimlessly," Alex said, setting off in the direction the compass indicated. As he followed the compass, Alex began to feel more confident. The jungle still shifted around him, but the compass always pointed him in the right direction. He even started to appreciate the beauty of his surroundings, the vibrant flowers, the graceful ferns, the occasional glimpse of colorful birds flitting through the canopy. But his newfound confidence was short-lived. As he pushed through a particularly dense patch of foliage, Alex found himself face to face with himself. He stumbled backward, blinking in confusion. Standing before him was an exact copy of Alex, down to the last detail. The doppelganger smiled, but there was something off about the expression, something predatory. "Who? What are you?" Alex stammered. The doppelganger's smile widened, revealing sharp teeth. "I'm you," it said in Alex's voice. "Or rather, I'm what you could be if you embraced the jungle." Alex's mind raced. This had to be one of the shapeshifters the message had warned about. But how was he supposed to get past it? The doppelganger took a step forward. "Why don't you give me that compass? I can guide you to the heart of the forest. After all, who better to trust than yourself?" Alex clutched the compass tightly, remembering the message's advice to trust his instincts. Something told him that handing over the compass would be a big mistake. "No," Alex said, surprised by the firmness in his voice. "You're not me. The real me wouldn't be so at home in this jungle." The doppelganger's face contorted with rage, its form shifting and twisting until it resembled a monstrous hybrid of human and plant. Vines shot out from its body, reaching for Alex. Acting on instinct, Alex dove to the side, narrowly avoiding the vines. He scrambled to his feet and ran, crashing through the underbrush with reckless abandon. Behind him, he could hear the creature pursuing, its inhuman shrieks echoing through the jungle. Alex ran until his lungs burned, the compass clutched tightly in his hand. He didn't dare look back, focusing only on putting as much distance as possible between himself and the shapeshifter. Finally, when he felt he couldn't run another step, Alex burst through a curtain of vines and found himself in another clearing. This one was larger than the last, and at its center stood an enormous tree. Its trunk was wider than any tree Alex had ever seen, and its branches seemed to touch the sky. As Alex approached the tree, he felt a sense of peace wash over him. The sounds of pursuit faded away, and even the ever-present mist seemed to thin. "The heart of the forest," Alex breathed, reaching out to touch the massive trunk. The moment his hand made contact with the bark, a surge of energy coursed through him. Images flashed through his mind, glimpses of his friends in their own challenges, a map of the game world, and finally, a vision of a great tree with roots that stretched across multiple realms. When the vision faded, Alex found himself holding a small seedling. Somehow, he knew that this seedling was the key to reuniting with his friends and finding a way out of the game. With renewed determination, Alex set off into the jungle once more. The compass now pointed in a new direction, and he had a feeling it would lead him to his next challenge. and hopefully to his friends. Chapter 6. Zoe's Crystal Cavern Quest. Zoe blinked rapidly, trying to adjust to the sudden change in her surroundings. Gone was the familiar comfort of the dorm room, replaced by a vast, glittering cavern that seemed to stretch endlessly in all directions. The walls, floor, and ceiling were covered in crystals of every color imaginable, refracting light in a dazzling display. "Guys!" Zoe called out, her voice echoing through the cavern. "Are you here?" Only her own voice answered her, bouncing back in a haunting chorus. Zoe hugged herself, feeling suddenly very small and alone in this alien environment. As she stood there, trying to gather her thoughts, a glowing orb appeared before her. It expanded, revealing a message. "Welcome to the Crystal Labyrinth. Your challenge: navigate the ever-changing maze and find the prism of truth. But be warned, the crystals reflect more than just light. Face your inner demons and emerge victorious." The orb disappeared, leaving Zoe with a sense of unease. She had always been the cautious one in the group, preferring to analyze and plan rather than rush headlong into danger. But now she had no choice but to move forward. Taking a deep breath, Zoe began to walk, her footsteps echoing loudly in the crystalline chamber. As she moved, she noticed that the crystals seemed to shift and change, creating new pathways and closing off others. It was as if the entire cavern was in constant motion, rearranging itself with every step she took. "Okay, Zoe," she muttered to herself. "Think logically. There has to be a pattern to this maze." She tried to keep track of her path, but it was useless. Every time she thought she had found a consistent route, the crystals would shift, leaving her disoriented and lost. After what felt like hours of wandering, Zoe stumbled upon a large circular chamber. In the center stood a pedestal made of pure, clear crystal. Atop it sat a small, multifaceted prism that seemed to glow with an inner light. "The prism of truth," Zoe breathed, approaching the pedestal cautiously. As she reached out to take the prism, her reflection in the surrounding crystals caught her eye. But something was wrong. The reflection showed not just one Zoe, but many, each one slightly different, representing various aspects of her personality. One reflection showed Zoe as she often feared others saw her cold, analytical, unable to connect emotionally. Another showed her greatest ambition, successful, confident, admired by all. Yet another reflected her deepest insecurities, alone, unloved, a failure. Zoe stumbled back, overwhelmed by the barrage of images. "What is this?" she gasped. A voice, seemingly coming from everywhere and nowhere, answered her. "The crystals reflect your true self, all aspects of it. To claim the prism of truth, you must confront and accept all parts of yourself." Zoe's mind raced. She had always prided herself on her self-awareness, but seeing all these facets of herself laid bare was overwhelming. How could she accept parts of herself that she had spent so long trying to change or hide? As she stood there, paralyzed by indecision, the reflections began to move. They stepped out of their crystal surfaces, surrounding Zoe in a circle of her own selves. "You're too cautious," one said. "You'll never achieve anything great if you're always playing it safe. You push people away," another accused. "You'll end up alone if you don't learn to open up. You're not smart enough," a third sneered. "Everyone will realize you're a fraud eventually." Zoe covered her ears, trying to block out the voices. But they persisted, growing louder and more insistent. She felt herself beginning to crack under the pressure. But then, amidst the cacophony of self-doubt and criticism, Zoe heard another voice, her own, but stronger and more confident than she had ever sounded. "Enough!" the voice shouted, and suddenly, all the other voices fell silent. Zoe opened her eyes to see another reflection of herself standing before her. But this one was different. It radiated a quiet strength and self-assurance that Zoe had always aspired to. "These are all parts of you," the reflection said gently. "The good and the bad, the strengths and the weaknesses. They make you who you are. But how can I accept the parts of myself that I don't like?" Zoe asked, her voice barely above a whisper. By understanding that they all serve a purpose, the reflection replied. Your caution keeps you safe. Your analytical mind solves problems. Your insecurities drive you to improve. They are all valuable, all worthy of acceptance. As the words sank in, Zoe felt a shift within herself. The other reflections began to fade, merging back into her until only she remained, standing alone in the crystal chamber. With a newfound sense of peace, Zoe approached the pedestal once more. This time, when she grasped the prism of truth, it glowed brightly, filling the cavern with rainbow light. Suddenly, Zoe was hit with a series of glimpses of her friends facing their own challenges, a map of the game world, and finally, an image of a great tree with roots that stretched across multiple realms. When the visions faded, Zoe found herself holding not just the prism, but also a small, perfectly formed crystal. Somehow, she knew that this crystal was the key to reuniting with her friends and finding a way out of the game. With renewed determination, Zoe set off into the crystal labyrinth once more. The path ahead was still uncertain, but she now faced it with confidence, ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. Chapter 7. Convergence. As our four heroes continued their separate journeys, each armed with the artifacts they had obtained from their respective challenges, they began to feel a strange pull. It was as if an invisible force was guiding them, drawing them towards a common destination. Jake, still in the underwater realm of Aquarius, found that the Pearl of Poseidon seemed to have a mind of its own. It pulsed with a soft light, tugging him gently but insistently towards the surface. As he swam upwards, following the Pearl's guidance, he noticed the water becoming warmer and clearer. Mia, deep within the ancient ruins of Isla Perdida, felt a similar pull. The strange symbols on the walls began to glow, forming a path that led her back towards the jungle. As she followed this luminous trail, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was getting closer to something important. In the whispering jungle, Alex found that his compass was behaving oddly. Instead of pointing in a fixed direction, it now spun slowly, as if tracking something moving. The seedling he had obtained from the heart of the forest seemed to resonate with the compass, its leaves quivering with energy. Zoe, navigating the ever-shifting crystal labyrinth, noticed that the prism of truth was casting a beam of light that always pointed in the same direction, regardless of how the cavern rearranged itself. The small crystal she had received pulsed in sync with this beam, growing warmer in her hand. As they followed their respective guides, each of them began to notice changes in their surroundings. The boundaries between their different realms seemed to blur, elements from each world bleeding into the others. Jake emerged from the ocean to find himself on a beach that looked suspiciously like the one Mia had first encountered. Mia pushed through a curtain of vines to discover crystal formations jutting out of the jungle floor. Alex stumbled upon a clearing where the trees seemed to sway in an unseen current, as if underwater. And Zoe found patches of lush vegetation growing amidst the crystals, the humid air of the jungle seeping into her cavern. Finally, after what felt like hours of travel, they each broke through into a new area and found themselves face to face with each other. "Guys!" Jake exclaimed, his face breaking into a wide grin. "You're okay." There was a moment of joyous reunion as the friends embraced, relief washing over them at being together once again. "Where are we?" Mia asked, looking around at their new surroundings. They stood in a vast circular chamber that seemed to incorporate elements from all of their individual realms. One quarter of the room was filled with crystal-clear water, complete with colorful coral and fish. Another section was a miniature jungle, lush and vibrant. The third quarter was a glittering crystal cavern, while the final section was an exact replica of the ancient ruins Mia had explored. In the center of the chamber stood an enormous tree, its trunk wider than all four of them could have encircled with their arms. Its branches stretched up and out, seeming to pierce the very fabric of reality. At the base of the tree was a console that looked oddly out of place in this fantastic environment. It resembled nothing so much as an old-school arcade machine. As they approached the tree, they felt their artifacts resonate. The Pearl of Poseidon, the strange fruit from Isla Perdida, the seedling from the heart of the forest, and the crystal from the labyrinth all began to glow in unison. I think we're supposed to use these somehow, Zoe said, holding out her crystal. They each stepped forward, guided by an instinct they couldn't quite explain. Jake placed the pearl in a water-filled hollow in the tree's roots. Mia planted her fruit in a patch of soil at the base of the trunk. Alex gently placed his seedling in a small nook in the bark. And Zoe inserted her crystal into a perfectly shaped indentation in the tree's trunk. As soon as all 4 artifacts were in place, the tree began to glow with an otherworldly light. The console at its base hummed to life, its screen flickering with static before resolving into an image. "Congratulations, players!" A familiar voice boomed from the console. "You have successfully completed the first stage of Realms Uncharted. You have shown courage, wisdom, adaptability, and teamwork, but your greatest challenge still lies ahead." The friends exchanged worried glances. What more could the game possibly throw at them? To truly complete the game and return to your world, you must face the final boss, the voice continued. A manifestation of your collective fears and doubts. Defeat it, and you will have mastered not just the game, but yourselves. The screen on the console changed, showing a character selection screen much like those in fighting games. But instead of fictional characters, it showed the 4 friends. "Choose your player," the voice instructed, "but choose wisely. For in the final battle, you will not be fighting as individuals, but as one." The friends looked at each other, the weight of the decision heavy upon them. Who would be best suited to face this final challenge? Chapter 8. The Final Boss. The friends stood in silence for a moment, the gravity of their situation sinking in. They had come so far, faced so many challenges, and now everything hinged on this final decision. "I think it should be Jake," Mia said, breaking the silence. "He's always been the best gamer among us." Jake shook his head. "No, I think it should be Zoe. She's the most level-headed and strategic thinker. But Alex has shown incredible adaptability throughout this whole ordeal," Zoe countered. "He might be our best bet." Alex looked surprised at the suggestion. "Me? But Mia's the one who's been so resourceful. She'd probably handle whatever this game throws at us better than any of us." As they debated, the tree began to pulse with energy, its glow intensifying. Suddenly, a voice that seemed to come from the tree itself spoke. "The choice is not about who is best, but about who you are together. You must combine your strengths, unite your experiences. Only as one can you hope to overcome the final challenge." The friends looked at each other, realization dawning on their faces. "We choose all of us," they said in unison. As soon as the words left their mouths, the console screen flashed brightly. The friends felt a strange sensation, as if they were being pulled apart and put back together at the same time. When the light faded, they found themselves merged into a single avatar on the screen, a being that somehow incorporated aspects of all 4 of them. The avatar had Jake's confident stance, Mia's observant eyes, Alex's quick reflexes, and Zoe's thoughtful expression. In its hands, it held a weapon that seemed to shift and change, sometimes appearing as a sword, other times as a bow, a staff, or a shield. "Very well," the voice said. "You have chosen wisdom over individual glory. Now, face your final challenge." The world around them began to shift and warp. The chamber melted away, replaced by a dark, foreboding landscape. The sky above was a roiling mass of storm clouds, flashing with otherworldly lightning. The ground beneath their feet was cracked and barren, steam hissing from fissures in the earth. And there, looming before them, was the final boss. It was a monstrous creature, constantly shifting and changing form. One moment it appeared as a dragon, the next a giant spider, then a shadowy humanoid figure. But no matter what form it took, its eyes remained the same, cold, calculating, and filled with malice. "This is it, guys," Jake's voice echoed in their shared consciousness. "Everything we've learned, everything we've been through, it all comes down to this. We can do this," Mia's voice added. We just need to work together. Remember, this thing is a manifestation of our fears and doubts, Zoe pointed out. We can't let it get in our heads. Right? Alex chimed in. Let's show this game what we're really made of. Their merged avatar took a fighting stance, the weapon in its hands solidifying into a gleaming sword. The final boss let out a roar that shook the very ground, and the battle began. The creature attacked with a fury that seemed impossible to counter. It breathed fire, shot poisonous barbs, and summoned shadowy minions to its aid. But for every attack, the friends found they had a counter. When fire rained down from above, they raised a shield of water, Jake's knowledge of the underwater realm coming into play. When the poisonous barbs flew towards them, Mia's experience with the island's flora allowed them to dodge with uncanny precision. Alex's newfound jungle instincts helped them navigate the constantly changing battlefield, while Zoe's insight from the crystal labyrinth allowed them to see through the boss's illusions. As the battle raged on, the friends began to realize something crucial: the boss was learning, adapting to their strategies. Every time they found a successful tactic, the creature would shift to counter it. This isn't working, Zoe's voice rang out in their shared mind. We need to think outside the box. What if? Mia began, an idea forming. What if we stop fighting altogether? Are you crazy? Jake exclaimed. That thing will destroy us. No, wait, Alex interjected. I think I see where Mia's going with this. Remember what the voice said. This thing is a manifestation of our fears and doubts. Exactly, Mia confirmed. We've been approaching this like a typical video game boss fight. But what if the real challenge isn't to defeat it, but to overcome our own fears? Understanding dawned on them all. As one, they lowered their weapon and stood tall, facing the monstrous creature without flinching. The boss, caught off guard by this change in tactics, hesitated in its attack. It roared in confusion and anger, but the friends stood their ground. We're not afraid of you, they spoke as one, their voice ringing with confidence. You have no power over us. As they spoke these words, something remarkable began to happen. The boss started to shrink, its fearsome appearance melting away. The storm clouds above dissipated, revealing a star-filled sky. The barren landscape began to bloom with life. Soon, where the terrifying creature had stood, there was only a mirror. In its reflection, the friends saw themselves not as the merged avatar, but as individuals standing together, stronger for all they had been through. As they gazed at their reflection, the world around them began to fade, replaced by a soft, white light. They felt a familiar pulling sensation, similar to what they had experienced when first entering the game. Congratulations, players! The game's voice spoke one last time. You have truly mastered Realms Uncharted. By overcoming your fears and working together, you have proven yourselves worthy champions. It is time for you to return to your world. The light grew brighter, enveloping them completely. For a moment, there was nothing but brightness and a sense of weightlessness. And then, Chapter 9 returned to reality. Jake blinked rapidly, his eyes adjusting to the sudden change in lighting. He found himself back in the familiar surroundings of his dorm room, sitting in front of his computer. Beside him, Mia, Alex, and Zoe were also coming to, looking as disoriented as he felt. Did that really happen? Alex asked, his voice hoarse. Zoe checked her watch. Guys, you're not going to believe this. Only an hour has passed since we started the game. They looked at each other in disbelief. Their adventure had felt like days, possibly even weeks. How could it have only been an hour? Look at the screen, Mia said, pointing at Jake's computer monitor. On the screen was a simple message. Congratulations on completing Realms Uncharted. Your unique gameplay experience has been saved. We hope you enjoyed your adventure. Below the message was a button that read View Gameplay Summary. With shaking hands, Jake clicked it. To their amazement, a video began to play, showing highlights of their journey through the game. There they were, facing challenges in their individual realms, working together to overcome the final boss. It was all there, proof that their experience had been real, or at least as real as a video game could be. As the video ended, the friends sat in stunned silence, trying to process everything they had been through. "I can't believe it," Jake finally said. "That was incredible. Terrifying, but incredible." "It felt so real," Mia added, shaking her head in wonder. "I can still taste that fruit from the island, still feel the sand between my toes." Alex nodded in agreement. "And the jungle, I've never felt so alive, so in tune with my surroundings. The crystal labyrinth taught me more about myself than years of self-reflection," Zoe mused. "It's like we've lived an entire lifetime in the span of an hour." As they discussed their experiences, they began to realize that they had changed. The challenges they had faced, the fears they had overcome, it had all left an indelible mark on them. Jake found that he now approached problems with more creativity, thinking outside the box in ways he never had before. Mia felt a new connection with nature and a heightened sense of resourcefulness. Alex discovered a well of courage and adaptability he never knew he possessed. And Zoe emerged with a deeper understanding of herself and a newfound ability to connect with others. But perhaps the most significant change was in their friendship. The bonds between them had been strengthened, forged in the fires of their shared adventure. They had seen each other at their most vulnerable, had relied on each other's strengths, and had emerged victorious together. As the night wore on, they talked and laughed, reliving their adventures and marveling at how a video game had managed to change their lives so profoundly. "You know," Jake said as the first light of dawn began to peek through the window, "I don't think I'll ever look at video games the same way again." The others nodded in agreement. They had entered Realms Uncharted expecting a game, but had emerged with so much more new perspectives, new strengths, and a friendship deeper than they had ever imagined possible. As they finally drifted off to sleep, exhausted but exhilarated, they couldn't help but wonder what other adventures awaited them, both in the virtual world and in reality. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they knew one thing for certain: they would face them together, as a team, just as they had in Realms Uncharted. And so, as the new day dawned, bringing with it endless possibilities, the four friends slept peacefully, their dreams filled with crystal caverns, underwater kingdoms, lush jungles, and desert islands. Their great adventure might have ended, but in many ways, they knew it was just the beginning. Epilogue. In the weeks and months that followed their extraordinary experience with Realms Uncharted, Jake, Mia, Alex, and Zoe found that the impact of their adventure extended far beyond their initial realizations. Jake, inspired by the immersive nature of the game, decided to change his major to computer science with a focus on virtual reality development. He dreamed of creating games that could offer others the same life-changing experience they had undergone. Mia, her connection with nature awakened by her time on Isla Perdida, became passionate about environmental conservation. She started a campus initiative to make the university more eco-friendly and began planning for a career in environmental science. Alex, having discovered reserves of courage and adaptability he never knew he possessed, became more outgoing and adventurous in his daily life. He joined the university's outdoor adventure club and even started rock climbing, channeling the skills he had developed in the Whispering Jungle. Zoe, with her newfound self-awareness and ability to connect with others, found herself excelling in her psychology classes. She began to consider a career in counseling, wanting to help others achieve the kind of personal growth she had experienced. But perhaps the most significant change was in how they approached life itself. The lessons they had learned in the game about teamwork, perseverance, self-reflection, and overcoming fear became guiding principles in their lives. They faced their studies with newfound determination, tackled personal challenges with courage, and approached relationships with deeper empathy and understanding. The memory of their shared adventure served as a constant reminder of what they could achieve when they worked together and believed in themselves. As for Realms Uncharted, the game became something of an urban legend on campus. Many tried to replicate the friends' experience, but none reported anything close to the immersive, life-changing adventure Jake, Mia, Alex, and Zoe had undergone. Some speculated that the game had somehow adapted specifically to them, or that they had unknowingly been part of some grand experiment in virtual reality technology. Whatever the truth, the four friends knew that their experience had been real, to them at least. And in the end, that was all that mattered. They had entered a video game and emerged as better versions of themselves. Their friendships strengthened, their perspectives broadened, and their lives forever changed. As they looked to the future, full of excitement for what lay ahead, they couldn't help but smile at the memory of their digital adventure. For in Realms Uncharted, they had not just played a game, they had lived it. And in doing so, they had unlocked the greatest power-up of all, the ability to face life's challenges with courage, creativity, and unwavering friendship. The end of their game had been just the beginning of their greatest adventure, life itself. And they were ready to face it head-on together, just as they had in the virtual world that had changed everything.
Subscribe for more.